block a frosted SIM card, they'll just throw away the SIM card, buy a new one in the same device. So if you're able to block both, that will also be a pain for fraudsters as well. And then number 4, with this exercise, the 2021 to 2023 exercise was a pain. There were long queues, and people were not really excited with it. So as much as possible, we want to create convenience with this one. The solution that we are bringing up, most people will be able to do the verification or the registration from the comfort of their homes with your own device. It will be an app, and it will allow you to do biometric verification without visiting the customer care center. The only challenge is that if you don't have a smartphone, or if you don't intend to do it yourself, then you have to visit the customer care center. And there are measures that we've put in place to make it to make it more convenient for those who intend to visit the customer care center. So for the sample, with the current registration, before we even came up with solutions for the new registration, we did a sample validation of the data that we've captured for the current registration. And we did a validation for about 2.3 million registrations that had been done. And you realize that when you're doing the registration, you did a liveness check and your fingerprints too were captured. So for the liveness check, your picture was captured, and then they also capture your fingerprint. That was a contactless fingerprint capture. And in our exercise, we noticed that we had an 81.1% success with the facial match. That is the picture that was captured. We verified it against the NIA database, and we had an 81.1% match. So 81% out of the 2.3 million were successful. But so that is a 1.861 million 304. Those were the successful ones. The rest failed, and it was due to various reasons. I think some of them. Some of them it may not be because the card is fake. It may be because the pictures were not captured well. So there were other reasons why those other cards were not successful. But in the case of the fingerprint, all of them failed. We had a 0% success, so there was no match. Every fingerprint that was captured failed. And this is one of the main reasons why we want to do real-time biometric verification. We noticed that Ghana cards were being cloned. And this is an example of a Ghana card that has been cloned. So it has the same Ghana card pin, it has the same name, but the pictures are different. So if somebody can swap your phone card, your SIM card right now with a fake ID, and they can get control of your number to do whatever they want to do. The SIM swap fraud has become rampant. So that is one of the reasons why I want to address this issue. So this is a classical case. And with this classical case, if the cloned Ghana card is used to do registry, it's going to pass because the PIN is correct, and the registration will be done with the information on the Ghana card. But with the new registration that is going to be done, it's going to fail because we are doing biometric verification against the NIA database. Yeah, real-time biometric verification, yeah. So these are some of the improvements that are necessary with and called for a need for a new SIM registration exercise. Some mobile numbers remain linked to incorrect identities. So some are linked to cloned Ghana cards, some people were able to register their SIMs using other people's identities and want to cure all that. And there's also weak verification, and that's leads to fraud and criminal activities. So the weak verification is because you can clone somebody's Ghana card. You can also find a way to register using another person's ID. So we want to cure all that. Then 3, stronger controls. We require stronger controls to protect the consumers. So if you're able to carry out this real-time biometric verification, I mean, consumers will have the comfort that the registration that they've done, they did it willingly, and nobody would use their card to also register a SIM card. Then we also have a reliable subscriber database critical for national security. So in a case where the SIM card is used to commit fraud, you can easily identify the person who owns the SIM card. So these are our proposed measures to cure the challenges that we experienced. One is to update the SIM registration regulations to align with what we intend to do, and also give us the legal backing in terms of all the directives that we want to put in place. Number two is to strengthen the identity verification during SIM registration. So that's where we intend to do real-time biometric verification with the NIA. And also for other registrations, for company registration, we're also looking at real-time verification with the Office of Registrar of Companies. We are still in discussions on that. And then we also do so same for the diplomatic community when it comes to verification of their cards. Then four is to provide mechanism for blocking illegal or stolen phones. So that is a central equipment identity register. We'll give more details on that. So with that in place, your phone can be blocked if it's stolen, and if your phone is also used to commit any fraudulent is used for any fraudulent activity, it can also be blocked. And then five, the solution that we intend to put in place would also enhance convenience in number registration. So as much as possible, it's not going to cause any pain for the consumer. All right, so now we'll give you a highlight of the new SIM registration regulations that Honorable Minister mentioned about, that will be laid before Parliament at the right time. It has information on the stronger identity verification, so where we will require real-time verification with a Ghana card through the National Identification Authority. It also talks about subscribers being able to register through digital platforms supported by multi-factor authentication. And then it also mentions a central repository, which will maintain a national record of SIM registrations to improve oversight and also to prevent fraud. It will also have provisions on the new safeguards, including biometric verification and system-level fraud detection, and then provisions on clear ownership and transfer rules. So if you want to transfer your SIM to somebody, or your child or another person, there are clear rules on that in the new regulations. And then there are also provisions for registration of minors, businesses, tourists, and foreign residents. So these are the relevant IDs for various categories of subscribers. For the Ghanaian citizen, the national ID is required. For a foreign resident, you also require the national ID, but that's a non-citizen national ID. For refugees, they also require a non-citizen national ID. Foreign visitors would require a passport. Then those from the diplomatic community will require a foreign affairs ID. Okay, so this is what we intend to do. Self-service registration, as I mentioned earlier. So subscribers will use their smartphones to complete their SIM registration independently through a self-service platform. So those who do not have smartphones, or those who don't intend to do it on their own, will have to visit the designated customer care centers. And we are going to use a booking system to do that, so that we can schedule registration appointments and also avoid queues in the customer care centers. In addition to that, we'll have mobile registration teams. So they will go to areas which are hard to reach, rural areas, to also do registration. And these teams will have the NIA team embedded in the teams of the telcos. So if they go there and you don't have a Ghana card, they'll register you and give you a Ghana card. Then you can also do your SIM registration. So in all this, it's also to give us a more convenient, efficient, and inclusive SIM registration for all subscribers. So if we are able to fully implement this, we don't expect customers to go through any inconvenience when they register their SIMs. Okay, so more information on the Central Equipment Identity Register. It's a national system That will be integrated with the SIM registration system, and that will allow stolen or illegal mobile phones to be blocked from all networks in Ghana. So if your phone is stolen and you report, it's not going to work on any network in Ghana. If the phone is used to commit fraud and we block it, it's not going to work on any network in Ghana. So this is going to make stealing of phones unattractive. And also, if you are doing fraud, then you have to buy a lot of phones, because we'll block every phone that you use to commit fraud. And at some point, we've had discussions with NIA where they may even suspend your Ghana card and you'll not be able to use it to register a SIM for some time. But we are still discussing the details. Yeah. So these are the main stakeholders that we are working with. The list is not exhaustive, but I'll highlight these ones. We have the ministry, our mother ministry, the Ministry of Communication, Digital Technology and Innovations, and they are responsible for giving policy direction and oversight. So in all that we are doing, we get our marching orders from them. Then NCA, we are the regulator. So we give regulatory oversight. We enforce what measures that we will put in place, and we also be responsible for consumer education and consumer protection. NIA will be responsible for the ID verification. That's the national Ghana card. Then the mobile network operators, they are the ones that are going to do the registration. So they are the ones going to implement the SIM registration itself, and they'll also be responsible for consumer education. Ministry of Foreign Affairs will be responsible for verification of diplomatic IDs. They issue Ministry of Foreign Affairs IDs to members of the diplomatic corps. So they will be responsible for verifying that, so that diplomats can also register. Then the Ghana Immigration Service will be responsible for verification of visitors. So foreign visitors who come in for a short stay. And then the Office of Registrar of Companies will be responsible for providing a provision and validation of data on registered companies. So corporate registration, you will have to verify your company registration documents before that is allowed. Now, the role of consumers. They will have to ensure that their SIM cards are registered with a Ghana card. So as a consumer with this new exercise, you have to ensure that you go through that process. 2, you have to report lost or stolen mobile phones immediately so that we can take action. Then 3, do not register cards for other people. Because now if you register cards for other people and there's there's a criminal issue, the person who registered the SIM will be taken on. And we are putting measures in place where you have to provide consent before your ID is used to register a SIM card. We are implementing what we call a primary number. So your primary number will receive notification for every registration that your Ghana card is used is used for. So you are the only one who can give consent, and you are the only one who will have the opportunity to select a primary number. So if your card is used, your SIM is used for any fraudulent activity, or a phone is used for any fraudulent activity and it's linked to your ID, it will be blocked and you'll also be taken on. So as much as possible, as part of our consumer education, we are going to advise consumers not to register SIM cards for other people. I mean, there are provisions where you can do for your children and other, which is in the new regulation. But for somebody that you don't know, obviously, we wouldn't encourage that to be done. And we also encourage consumers to protect their personal identity information. So what are the benefits of this new exercise to Ghana's digital economy? If this is carried out, we expect to have safer mobile money transactions, because all the subscribers within the mobile money ecosystems will be able to identify them. So if there's any challenge, we should be able to identify you, or we should be able to identify the device that was used to do the transaction. Then we expect to have increased trust in digital services, because with this new exercise, we expect that the verification is going to be more robust, and it's now going to be next to impossible for you to use somebody's card to do any fraudulent registration. Then 3, we are going to have stronger protection against telecom fraud. Once you can identify the actors, it makes it very difficult for fraud to be committed. Then 4, improved integrity of the national telecom system. So our key message to Ghanaians is that Ghana is strengthening SIM registration and introducing the device control systems to ensure that every SIM and every mobile device on your networks can be verified and traced when necessary. Legal and technical processes will be completed before the new process. So we'll ensure that the new regulation has been passed before we start the exercise. An extensive stakeholder consultation will be done at every phase. With the regulations, we've done extensive stakeholder consultation. We've published the document on our website. We've engaged all the relevant stakeholders. They've also provided input. So, I mean, we have enough stakeholder buy-in for this exercise. And as we've mentioned throughout the presentation, convenience for consumer is integral in the legal framework and technical implementation of the new process. So convenience is the most important thing with this exercise. We don't expect to cause pain for the consumer. So the solution that we are putting in place is going to make registration seamless, going to make registration as convenient as possible. Then the national ID registration accessibility and convenience has been enhanced to support the new registration process. Now, NIA, with the previous exercise, NIA had only 7 registration centers. And that was one of the biggest bottlenecks with the previous exercise, getting a Ghana card. Now, almost 90% registration has been done, and NIA has over 290 registration centers. So in terms of getting a Ghana card, we don't expect that to be a challenge. So the start date, a new process will be announced in due course. So once we are done with the regulations, once we are done with the technical solution, we will communicate the start date and the new process to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, you want to then add something? Or?
Chair, I think that for me, one of the critical things is the point that was made relative to when we showed you the Ghana cards. We showed you 2 Ghana cards. Biometric verification of everybody on the database. So, Chair, I think that I will pause here. The team has done a great job explaining to you what we've done, and we would open ourselves up for questions, suggestions, and any recommendations from the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so you came late, Honorable Member Abflam, please. Yes, please introduce yourself, and then Honorable Bondi will take his question. Please, can you make it very snappy? Don't tell stories. Just ask your question. Yes. Okay, so when you finish, then he will now come in.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Honorable Wala Sekbeli, the Member of Parliament for Afram Plains North. Looking through the presentation by the distinguished officer, I would want to ask, practically, I have a concern about having a SIM card registered which is unused or redundant for a long time. Most of the time, the telecos reassign those numbers. And I have a practical example with me where the number was reissued to me, but the information of the earlier person who had that SIM is still on the SIM. How do we cure that? And then secondly, for the foreigners who would be in Ghana for not more than 90 days, when you issue them with a SIM, how do we clear their that record and the number of the system after the 90 days has expired? Thank you.
You said the new SIM card has been issued to you, but the information of that person is still on the SIM. What do you mean? You understand what it is?
question, and it is one of the reasons why we will need to do this process properly. Because just 3 weeks ago, whilst attending the Mobile World Conference, my own biological brother came to me. He works in Germany, in Europe, came to see me and showed me a similar situation to what you're talking about. So I referred it to NCADG. So this is not abstract. When he came, he was in Ghana in February and registered with a new number with a telco with his own Ghana card. A number was issued to him. But as we speak, the transactions, bank transactions of the previous owner of that number, every time the person does a bank transaction, a text message. And I have those, so we would explain that, how that happens, but it explains the challenge of the interoperability of the verification systems and why that has to be fixed with this process that we are dealing with. So it's a question we understand.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair. The first concern is about the system itself. You realize that there are so many Ghana cards in the system that are not genuine Ghana cards. I don't know how you deal with those things. There are so many Ghana cards in the system that when you trace the source of those Ghana cards, you don't really get to its genuity. That's one thing. So if you use that thing to do the synchronization, you end up getting wrong, data. Number two is that the fraud guys, they I don't know how they do it. They are able to even generate people's Ghana card and use it to register SIM without the people's knowledge. I don't know how secure this system is going to be and the kind of security system you're putting in place to ensure that you must be the owner of that Ghana card to be able to use it. I don't know how that's going to be. What I'm happy about is the blocking of the numbers and the phones and all that. I think that consistently it will go. But one of our problem is communication. Communication, because you see the things you displayed on the screens are all very fantastic issues, and I think that if the people know the consequences about using even your Ghana card to register for somebody, the challenges you face, I think that will be fine. So the third point is communication. How do you get people to understand what you're saying? I think that's what you should also look at. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Can we take these two questions, these two batches, and then subsequent to that, we come back again? Yes. So, I mean, on the issue of churned numbers, which is what Honorable Kweli asked about a number being inactive for a number of, I think it's about 6 months. Currently 6 months is the regulatory time frame. After 6 months of inactivity on a number, whether it's no phone call, no text message, no recharge, the networks are allowed after 180 days to churn the number and then make it available to a new person. But what ought to happen is that the systems are supposed to be so interoperable that every service attached to that number should also be discontinued. And in fact, when I spoke to DG explained to me that that system exists and that ought to be the case. However, it speaks to the fact that we have challenges with the interoperability of the system. And that's why with what we're doing right now, we're trying to make sure that we work closely. And this week, I've been at the Bank of Ghana twice this week already. We're trying to work very closely with the Bank of Ghana and the NCA as regulators of the space, because what people don't realize is that mobile money and banking operations, even though you do them on your phone, are not regulated by the NCA. They are regulated by the Bank of Ghana. And so there's complete regulatory divergence when it comes to telephone services on your phone and financial services on your phone. And that's why we're working together now with there's some VAS arrangement that Deputy DG mentioned to me. It's been worked on between the Bank of Ghana and the NCA to ensure that that gray area is looked at properly. Because when people have mobile money fraud, it's the Ministry of Communication and the NCA they call. Meanwhile, we have absolutely no control over that. It's solely under the Bank of Ghana. So it is the work that we're doing. But, Chair, to deal with that issue, if you are able to do the new process and we're able to integrate with the Bank of Ghana in real time, what it does for us is, as the telcos do a deactivation of a number across the entire ecosystem, any service that is linked to the Ghana card that was used to register the SIM card gets deactivated as well. So that's the beauty of what we intend to do, because now you are actually properly linking not the SIM card to the biodata on the card, but to the biometrics behind the registration. Because, as has been asked here, there are challenges of biodata that will go through the system if you are just verifying against, using NFC, verifying against what is stored on the card. Because if the card is a clone, once you've generated that card, if you run any search against it, it will pass. Meanwhile, that card that is passing does not exist on our national database because there is no biometrics behind it to match it. And that's where the challenge is, with saying that 81% may have gone through and all the ancillary challenges associated with that. On the foreigners' numbers, the LI deals with that. The LI, it's part of the reason why we want to lay the LI. It gives regulatory framework. And Mr. Bayani, I would want for you to explain that bit on what the LI says relative to visitors to our country who have 90 days. What are the specific provisions? I want for you to address that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for a visitor, your identity card will be your passport. That is what we'll use to register your SIM. And the validity period of your SIM is tied to the period of your lawful stay. The consensus is that for now we keep it at 90 days. So for one coming into our country through our airport, we are linking your registration to the Ghana Immigration Service, where they'll validate the validity period of your visa. But you might ask, what about those coming through our land borders? Yes, if the routes are the approved routes, similarly we would ride on the Ghana Immigration Service. But touch wood, if someone even comes through an unapproved route, to be able to purchase a SIM, you still require your passport. So your passport will be the one we use. And so long as you are not lawfully resident, the validity period is just 90 days. Past the 90 days, the number is deactivated. If your stay extends beyond the 90 days, you may have to go back to have it re-registered. And at each point in time, it's for a maximum of 90 days and nothing more. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just to add a bit of context to that, for foreigners in the country, there's the validity of any SIM that is registered with a passport is literally 90 days. If you're going to be in Ghana beyond 90 days, which is normally the duration of visas that we give, if it is beyond 90 days, you would have to go back and show that your valid visa runs beyond the 90 days and then you get an extension on it. Or if you are coming in, so you enter with a visa and then the person comes to work here and maybe now is giving a work permit. It means that that person is no longer a visitor. That person is a resident in the country. That person would then have to apply to the NIA for a foreigner's identity card, because the NIA issues identity cards for foreigners. And then you do your registration now with your foreigner's ID Ghana card. So you will no longer be having the validity of your card based on 90 days, based on your visa or your passport, but on your NIA issued card for those who have entered the country and now are maybe the person is coming in as a contract staff for 1 year to work with any of our mines, for example. You come in, you must get the foreign resident's national ID card and use that. Mr. Chair, I think that part of the conversation I've had with the team has also been that even if the card is registered with a passport and the validity is 90 days, we must work with the immigration service such that the SIM is churned either 90 days or on departure from the country, whichever happens first. Because you can enter the country, because if the person came into the country for just 2 weeks and registers the SIM card and leaves the country after 2 weeks, you need not keep that SIM card active for the remaining days in the 90 days. What's the person using the card for? Once the person is no longer in the country. So working with the immigration service, we'll need to ensure that it is 90 days or exit from the country, whichever happens first. Because in other jurisdictions where we get tourist SIMs, once you leave their country, they deactivate the SIM. So that's what we're going to look at. On the issue of fake Ghana cards, I mean, Honorable and Chair, that is a reality we're dealing with. It's part of the reason why, as we speak today, and like I said to you, this process is a collaborative process with multiple agencies. The issue of fake Ghana cards is something that the NIA has been dealing with. My colleague, Honorable Mohammed Muntaka Mubarak, who is Minister for Interior and oversees the NIA, is fully versed with the issue. And as we started the processes here, it was even highlighted the more. And that has informed, that's in part, because that's not the only reason why, but that in part has informed the decision to lay the new LI on SIM registration. There's an amendment to LI 2111 that has been laid before the House. It's the days are counting to get the 21 days. And that's why you would hear that the NIA Executive Secretary, Mr. Yaira Dekukoku, has been out saying that when that LI passes, when you go, it will be criminal for anybody whatsoever to photocopy the Ghana card of any citizen to offer them a service. Because you see, data protection issues come in here. You go to a bank, and today almost all banks or any place you go, they want to take your Ghana card and photocopy it. You go to a hotel, they want to take your Ghana card or your passport and photocopy it and keep it. The question is, how is that photocopy stored and handled? Because if it is not handled well, and anybody gets a copy of your Ghana card, now what they do is they have access to your Ghana card number, which is basically what, if you use the existing system, you need to verify the Ghana card number, because it's just verifying against the number and not the biometrics. I can then pick your Ghana card number and change the entire data set, biodata, on the card. So it is David Zopoko Ansa. But once I have his Ghana card number, I can make it David Enyim Ansa. Change the date of birth. When you run that against a search on just the Ghana card number, the Ghana card number is valid. So it will say that Ghana card number is valid. But the only way you can validate that properly is if you run that against the biometrics that OPK, David Opoko Ansa, submitted to the NIA when he did his original registration. Failure for us to do that biometric verification, and you are doing just the first layer, which is what has been done, just the number. We have these Ghana cards in all kinds of institutions, and that's why the NIA is taking steps to ban and make illegal the duplication of Ghana cards as one of the things that's before Parliament. So it's a collaborative process across all the multiple agencies that will help us deal with this challenge, because the issuance of Ghana card does not necessarily rest with the Ministry of Communication. It rests with the NIA under the Ministry of Interior. But these are critical steps I'm aware they've taken to address that issue. And that's why fraudsters will be able to use the Ghana card to do registration. But again, one of the things we even realized, and that's how come people in this process, again, please correct me, NCA, one of the key things we're trying to eradicate is the use of agents to do registration of SIM cards. And we've made the point at the last stakeholder engagement with the telcos. I said to them that for even people who will come to the telco shop to do the registration, the telcos must build a system that allows for us to track which staff of theirs, which staff ID was linked to every registration that was done by the telcos. Because what we realized with the previous system was people go to do the registration. You give your Ghana card to an agent. He tells you he's registering the SIM for you, finishes the process, and tells you that, oh, network ninye, and call through. I have to do it again. Takes the card again and runs it. But what we realized is the first one actually went through. He registered the SIM, but told you it didn't go through because he was handling the device. He did all the authentication on his end. And so for that process to have gone through, you have no way of verifying whether it went through or not. So he will end up registering 3 SIM cards, hand one over to you, but has pre-registered 2, which he will now sell on the black market. And that's why to cure this, we've introduced the OTP. So what the OTP does is that when you register your first SIM card, whether at an MTN, Telecel, or AT depot, your phone is with you. So after they've gone through the process, the NCA system is going to send a text message to your phone for you to verify using the OTP for them to complete the process. So once you've given that OTP, you know that that process has gone through. Because for it to require the OTP from you, he can't tell you that the registration didn't go through. Because that's literally like the last phase of verification through the system. Once that is done, even if the person has your Ghana card and tries to register any other SIM, because that has been identified as your primary number, every time he tries to do a registration with your Ghana card, an OTP will be sent to that your primary number which is with you. Without that PIN, they cannot complete the process. Okay. So you get it? Yeah. So that's where we are. Communication is a critical part. I agree. And once we complete this process, I've told the NTA, the technology is 25% of this process. Communication is 75%. We're going to launch a massive public education and sensitization program. Already, this thing has become very topical. There's been a lot of engagement, and that's why almost all our stakeholder engagements have been broadcast, either streamed live, thanks to Parliament. Even what we're doing here is live on TV. People are watching. But we will do a proper education campaign in our local dialects, working with the Bureau of Ghanaian Languages to ensure that we, and the Information Services Department, ISD, to ensure that people understand the processes and what they have to go through to register. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Honorable Chair, if I may add a few words to Honorable Minister's concern. You know, this conversation, incidentally, has been enriched by a recent decision of the Supreme Court, rendered just 3 weeks ago. Here is this gentleman who finds a number registered with his Ghana card. The Supreme Court says it's a breach of his privacy. And with this judgment, trust me, if the current data sets on registration is allowed to stay, it's opening the floodgates for multiple suits against the telcos. So
can you explain that? What was the case about?
So he does a test using the *402# and finds that his Ghana card
has been
registered to a number which does not belong to him.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of these are bound. .4 IDs have been used to register numbers. And unbeknownst to the real owners, there are numbers flying around in their name. So you see,
okay,
the telcos are going to be opening up to litigation if this is not corrected.
Very
And
well.
His Lordship Justice Kulinde made a very seminal ruling. He said that identity verification, properly so called, if it is not attended with real-time biometric verification, it's not foolproof.
It's not, okay.
And that is what we have today. The data sits there on the face of the card. There is a number which has been verified. There is a picture which is tied to the number. But as to whether it is indeed the ID of the person who came for registration, that is doubtful.
Thank you.
And this is what we seek to cure.
You've made
the real-time verification.
Thank you.
Which
that example is very, very
Thank
important. You. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I think I want to say that I'm not too sure nobody is against the exercise that you want to undertake. This whole noise that is in the system is certainly an attempt to rubbish what really happened some in 2021, 2022, 2023, thereabout. It's a process. In fact, if you look at what happened in 2010, 2011, that led to the LI 2006 being passed, and we're using about 4 ID cards to verify. What happened in 2021, 2022 to 2023 is an improvement of the previous system. What we are here saying today, in the next 10 years to come, technology will evolve and there will be the need to maybe do another system of verification. Because in the space, things keep changing. So I'm not too sure we're against it, and I've seen the struggle to do that. And of course, I'm happy that you cited the Goni case, where it's important for us to verify and ensure that, the database that sits with the NIA is linked to the system. What I want to find out from the presenter is that in 2021, when you were engaging the NIA, the NCA wrote a letter to the NIA asking for specifications. And I ask this because you said that when you were running the test on the 2.3 million subscribers or SIM cards registered, you had 0 when it came to the fingerprints. Are you aware of this communication between the NIA and NCA, which asked for specifications, and the NIA came back to you giving you specifications? Is it that the whole story has changed?
No, hold on. Other questions, just ask all and then they will take it. I don't want it to be back and forth. No. So ask all your questions and then they will respond to.
Then also, the new system that you intend to implement. If today you want to open a bank account and you go to the bank also do real-time verification of the system. The challenge is that now the banks will give you an app, or they will give you a link, so that in the comfort of your home, you do the verification yourself. But many a times, this has failed. And sometimes the bank would have to come to you with a desktop verification for you to verify. Are you not going to use the same API? Are citizens not going to face the same challenges in their homes? I think these are concerns that we need to address. Then also, you also mentioned that you are still in talks with the company registrations unit of our state, so that you are able to get real-time verification on their system. The challenge we had previously was rushing to do a system when the entire process was not completed. The entire stakeholder engagements was not completed. You want to start this whole process somewhere in May or June. Or you have not given a time, but you've started conversations on this subject. Is it not proper for you to complete or to conclude your negotiations with the company's registration before you come out and make suggestions? Because as you speak, that process is not completed. And when do you intend to complete that process? Thank you.
Okay, that's 3 questions. If we may take it before we move to the next.
So I'll take the last one first.
Okay.
With regards to Office of Registrar of Companies, we are engaging them. As I mentioned earlier, we are having extensive stakeholder engagement. And even with the 2021 to 2023 exercise, we engaged Office of Registrar of Companies. And we want the ideal solution we wanted was real-time verification, but they couldn't deliver that. But in our engagement, they've indicated that they are ready to do that. But once it's not been tested, or once you've not done any established any connection, I'll definitely have to say that we are still in discussions. But now they've told us that they are ready to do that. But we'll have to do the connection. We'll have to be sure that everything works. That's why I said, but there's extensive stakeholder engagement. And as the minister mentioned, our honorable minister mentioned, we are going to have extensive engagement with the industry before we even give a date for the commencement of the exercise. And also for the solution, we are working with NIA. We'll have SLAs with NIA. So we will test it and be sure that everything is okay before we start the process.
So you haven't tested it yet. You are still working, building a solution. Is that what it is?
No, Chair, so I'll step in here. Yeah. The NCA is now going to go through the process of procuring a platform. What the NCA has done is to determine what the standards of whichever platform we would use will be. So at this point in time, it will be impossible to test a system that you have not procured yet. So, and that's why when the Honorable OPK asked if we were starting in May or June, I said we haven't given a timeline. We've indicated that we want to start it this year. And I mean, we are just towards the end of Q1. In fact, we cannot even start in May because I've indicated that we will not do this without an ally. Parliament will come back maybe sometime in May. It will take us 21 sitting days, which will take us to like the end of June before the procurement is done. So this may happen in Q3 or Q4, but it will happen this year. And in all of this intervening time, the same way I indicated that we will come back and meet the committee and subsidiary legislation, there are still processes. So on the LI, it's the same way. By the time we are done with all of these other things, concurrently, we would have signed our SLAs with ORC, Office of Registrar of Companies. So the issue with Office of Registrar of Companies is not an agreement in how to work, but it's in the framework and technical specifications of how to do in real time the verification. So that's been done. That's been worked on. The issue, and let me be very clear. As a ministry, and I believe as a regulator as well, nobody is out to witch hunt anybody. And nobody is out to say anything to suggest. Oh, Honorable, okay, I'll be grateful if you were here, because I was addressing a critical matter. Chair,
so you go ahead.
Nobody is here to say that somebody did wrong or we are rubbishing what was done. Absolutely not. I mean, and Chairman, with your permission, I'm sure that the committee would be aware of a statement that was issued last Friday by my predecessor in response to comments made by His Excellency President Mahama during his accounting to the people tour. And Chair, for the purposes of this committee, I would want to make some reference to that document. I wish the Honorable OPK was in the room as I made reference to that document. But what that statement, which was authored by the Honorable Esilawusu, said was that it has become necessary, and this is from the second paragraph of her statement, and I quote, "Let us be clear from the beginning. The 2022-2023 SIM registration exercise did not come out of nowhere. It became necessary because the old SIM registration exercise done in 2010 to 2011 was not effective. That earlier process did not have any proper validation system due to the lack of any mass identification document." So it's the former minister who's actually made reference to her predecessor, Haruna's project, as being not effective. But if we go beyond that and read further in her statement, she says that in the third paragraph, that is why we introduced a more structured and legally compliant process tied to the Ghana card. And let me just stop here and say that in 2010, you didn't have an LI for Ghana card. So when she says that the 2010 process did not comply to a mass identity document, it couldn't have, because there was no legal framework for that in the first place. But she goes on to say the idea was simple. If SIM cards are being used in Ghana, then they must be linked to a proper national identity system as required by law. That was the whole point. And Chair, I agree completely with my predecessor, Honorable Esilawusu, when she said in her statement that the whole point was that any SIM being used in Ghana must be linked to a proper national identity system. Then she proceeds in the fourth paragraph. The process itself had 2 stages. First, people entered their Ghana card detail through a short code. Those details were checked with the NIA to confirm that the information was correct. After that, the individual moved to the second stage, which involved data capture, biometric registration, including facial and fingerprint capture. So this was the process the Honorable Eslausu Ekufu set out to do, which I state on record in Parliament was right technically and sound. However, in her own statement, this is what she says. In paragraph 6, the only issue was that the NIA did not allow the SIM registration system to connect to their database for biometric verification. And in her statement, Chairman, she puts the biometric verification in bold letters. She's bolding it. I'll read that again. The only issue was that the NIA did not allow the SIM registration system to connect to their database for biometric verification at that second stage. That was the challenge. This is the Honorable Minister, my predecessor's own statement. So in her statement, she admits that what we set out to do in 2021 to 2023, which, like I've stated, was technically sound, link all SIM cards to the national identity system through biometric verification, she admits did not happen. So nobody is trying to rubbish the exercise that was undertaken under her. What we are simply saying, which she herself agrees and admits in her own issued statement, is simply she could not achieve the process. And there were structural, institutional challenges that led to that. And that's what we are working today to fix. That's all we are doing. So nobody is out to rubbish the process. We're simply saying that we agree with the intent, but so long as the result was not achieved in 2023, let's do this. And the last point I'll make to
Minister,
there was a point on the technology that he raised.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to make the point that, Chair, Germany did their SIM registration in 2003. Technology has evolved several iterations since then. They haven't had to do a mass registration because they did it right. If we do this right and link every SIM card to a biometric verification, no matter how technology evolves tomorrow, once that card is already identified and verified, you don't need to do a mass registration again. And let's be clear, this process is not going to be one that ends. The mass registration will have an end date. Post that, the registration will be an ongoing process, because every time anybody wants to get a SIM registered, you still have to go through the process. Just that we won't have it as a mass registration. And Chair, let me just add that the Goni case, which Deputy Director Legal addresses, issued I think on 25th of February this year, is a fantastic case for us. And that's why, Chair, at the AGM of MTN, which was held earlier this week or last week, the CEO of MTN made the point clearly that as the largest telecom company, they are looking forward to this process, they will take part in the process, and that they will bear the cost without passing it on. I have the same assurances from the other telecom players, because, Chair, if we don't do this, the cost to the industry is going to be more than we can bear. And so this is for all our collective goods, both citizens and players and regulators. It's for our own collective good. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Please, yes, before you come in, let's, Ms. Bao.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Honourable Minister, we are grateful for the presentation from yourself and the team. It's bringing us to speed matters arising with regards to the pending SIM card registration. Yeah, as the people representative, we were really very concerned when we started hearing this, especially stepping from the fact that experiences from the past, the long queues, the stress our people went through during the last registration. So I was particularly very excited when you mentioned that there will be self-registration exercises through smartphones. You've also made provisions for booking to reduce queuing at registration centers. That we are very grateful. But you mentioned something that caught my attention, and I just want to emphasize that with regards to this mobile registration teams, where I come from, my constituency is predominantly rural. We want to emphasize and plead that let's make sure that we really invest in that one. I mean, the mobile registration teams, so that everybody can be captured, I mean, at ease without any difficulty. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable.
Yeah, for our rural communities, we can assure you, we are looking even beyond just the mobile teams. We're looking to also use all the assets available to us at the ministry, our CICs, our post offices, to have support teams in all of those places. And you will know that we have footprints in Mion, we've got a CIC, we've got a post office there as well. So we would work. And the beauty of this is our mobile teams are going to have NIA staff embedded with them. So even when you get to a place where the people don't have Ghana cards, the NIA embedded team will be able to do the registration and issuance of the Ghana card for them to then do their SIM registration as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Navrongo.
Thank you very much, Chair. I am happy about this exercise, because the fact that it's going to use biometrics makes it very important, and link it to your SIM. I mean, I know that's what is done elsewhere, and so that's very comforting. I just want to get assurances from the institutions that will be involved in this, that it will be a seamless exercise, and that it will not affect, if you're already registered, it won't affect anything, businesses, individuals, and all that. The process will be seamless. That is the assurance I want to hear from the institutions involved, NIA, NCA, and the rest of them. And also, another thing I want to know is, as a Ghanaian, your primary ID document will be Ghana card. I was thinking, is there no chance we can allow, especially Ghanaians outside who are not resident here, who live abroad, coming from that background, that most of them have only passports, and that they can register with passports, and then when they're in Ghana for, say, a month or so, they allow them to transition into the primary ID document, which is the Ghana card. And then I think the other one I wanted to ask about is the rural communities, because part of my constituency is very rural and hard to reach area. How do they also get their SIM cards registered in this way? But I think that assurance has been given by Minister, that a provision will be made for that. And the cost of it, has it been well costed? Again, I get comfort from what Minister just told us, that MTN has offered to take the cost. But I know that's not all the cost. Are other telcos coming on board and willing to support? Because oftentimes such a national exercise is always fraught with money issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Allow Dr. Kabiru to...
Kabiru may have a lot of questions, so let me just clear this one quickly. Let me just clear this quickly. Kabiru is long. His questions are always very long. You see, he agrees that he has a lot of questions. Will the process be seamless? We're pretty sure that the technical team at the NIA and the NCA will give us a seamless... I have absolute trust in the technical capabilities at the two institutions that will have there's no process that will not have some teething challenges and some implementation challenges, but we are ready to deal with all challenges as they come up. On the issue of foreigners, the NIA, Ghanaians outside, if a Ghanaian outside the country has the Ghana card, they don't need to travel, and that's one of the weaknesses of the previous system. Ghanaians had to travel into the country to register. Now, a Ghanaian outside doesn't need to travel into the country. You just use your Ghana card to register. Now, for those who do not have the Ghana card, I'm aware that the NIA has begun issuance of Ghana cards in some of our missions, in the UK, in the US, in Germany, in Holland. So all they need to do is go and get their Ghana card from the mission and do the same registration from wherever they are in the world. Because you see, the reason why we cannot allow the use of other documents for Ghanaians is because of LI 2111. LI 2111 states that for Ghanaians to use a SIM card, it can only be registered using the Ghana card. So you cannot create another route outside of what Parliament has as the LI that we are operationalizing. And then I think on the cost, I can assure you, I said it's not just MTN. All the telecom companies have expressed their understanding that they would work with us. And look, like Deputy Director Legal said, if you're a business in the telecom space today, I'm sure you are pushing and praying that the NTA will do this process quickly before anybody brings a class action suit against any of them, because it will be cheaper for them to pay for this process than to be faced with litigation and class action suits. The last process that was done under the previous administration was about 5 CDs per registration. We've not finalized. I've seen people say the cost is 5 CD. We've not announced a cost of 5 CD. The stakeholder engagements are still ongoing to determine what the price will be. But that's happening with the telcos who are going to bear the cost of the process. Thank you.
So, Minister, for emphasis sake, this exercise will be of no cost to the Ghanaian citizen.
Yes, Ghanaian citizens who have SIM cards will not pay a peso for the registration of their SIM cards.
Thank you. Dr. Kabiru.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, I would have wished we have a brief answer question, but because of your direction, I will ask all the questions, and then I hope they will take notice of that and they can respond appropriately. But first is to note that the problem is that it's not a consultation. It's a decision taken by the ministry and then communicating to the good people of Ghana that a decision has been taken to register again, and we are informing you. If it was a consultation, we would have arrived as to whether we would do registration or validation. That the discussion would have been different. So we need to put that on record that it's a decision.
But Dr. Kabiru, you have to appreciate that this is a policy decision by the ministry.
That's the point.
So they would.
Chairman,
they are only.
Chairman, so whether I'm just saying it's a decision.
Yeah,
you are
so I want you to
with a policy.
be mindful
so
of that. Thank you.
It doesn't change anything. I've said in fact, it's a policy decision. Yeah. It's a let me qualify, because we are talking of the Minister of Communication. So it's a policy. I'm not saying it's a personal decision. It's of course a policy decision. Mr. Chairman, that said, I want to find out from the acting director, have you registered your SIM when the registration was done? And is your SIM part of the problems that have not been certified? And that applies to other members of the NCA. If you have personal SIMs that you registered, and that today you are telling us that those registrations you were done could not be validated, and that in effect they are defective registration. That's the first question. The second question I have is the challenges you are noting with the last registration. They didn't occur to us now. You and I know that the briefing you prepared for the former minister to come to Parliament to update Parliament before the records of Parliament, they noticed some of the challenges that you are recounting and the measures that were put in place to address them. So why are you jettisoning some of the measures? It includes your code 402 was introduced as part of the remedial measures to addressing some of the challenges that we are told today. Why are you jettisoning some of the recommendations you made to the minister on addressing some of the challenges that came to light immediately after the registration, and now going for a total brand new or a fresh registration? The next question I have is to you say you have discussion with the NIA. You are giving us assurance that the data set with the National Identification Authority is waterproof, is iron cast. In effect, you can rely on the authenticity of that data that the National Identification Authority is going to provide, on the basis of which we would do this exercise. And referencing the statement by Honorable Esla also, which copiously has been referenced by the Honorable Minister, the point is that if we are taking her word, she was not allowed access to the NIA system. That is the point. Or she could not verify the data that was captured through the SIM registration with the NIA system. Now you have the opportunity to work with JIFA
why can't you just continue with that and verify the data set you have, and then the discrepancies of the remaining 20% that you identify or even more would come to light? You then deal with that. Why do you have to do a whole new registration? Because you now have access. If ESLA did not have access, you now have access. So that is the next question. Probably
how many questions do you have?
Chair, unfortunately, my questions
please.
are running out. My questions are running out. So, and if you have data, though it comes to light that some of your data, some of the cards were cloned, and that's a system. Even tomorrow, someone will clone another one. But your good news you are giving us is that now, because you have interface with the National Identification Authority, those clone data cannot get through with the registration, basically. Now, has the NIA been able to tell you, or I don't see how that is possible, I'm just trying to find out whether you are able to determine out of the current registration, the proportion or the number that you suspect reasonably to have been cloned based on your validation of the current system that you have. Mr. Chair, the last question, and actually the last. The last question I want to ask is regarding the Parliament on this measure. You are the minister has taken. And let me first and foremost, it's unusual. You think that we're to commend the minister and your team for being very concerned about the quality of SIM registration. The whole intention, in principle, we must all support it, that to the extent that our data system is not well protected, is not well safeguarded, we all have to comment. And that when you identify challenges and you want to address them, we have to give you our fullest support. The difference is the how. But the issue that I want to find out from you is, considering the fact that you now know what we are now as a country, would you, in all sincerity, access we should go, because in the previous registration we have the liveliness and the likeness verification, which basically you are going to do similar thing.
Dr. Kabir, what is the question?
Chair,
please.
That's the question I'm trying to arrive at, I've not spoken for 10 minutes, so it cannot be a lecture. And Chairman, you are actually prolonging it by this question, because.
Please ask your question.
Good, thank you. And when you do that, you distract my thought, and that is basically the point. I'm
trying to let you avoid the narration.
Yeah. So the last thing you did you are going to do a similar thing like ESLA did, likeness and liveliness checks, because you tell me that someone will have to have an iPhone or smartphone where they can take the facial. Biometric, if you like. The fingerprint, probably the person will have to come later, or you may not even need to take fingerprint, per your explanation. You only rely on the facial expression or facial data of the person, which was similar to what she did, because they captured the liveliness. Okay, that is what my understanding is, that was what was done in the last exercise, and that was what needed to be verified against the NIA data to be sure of its authenticity. Now, is this same system going to happen, or you are doing a similar system? Thank you very much.
Okay, so
NIA team, NCA team, take which of the questions, whichever of the ones you're comfortable taking, I'll take the rest of them.
Okay. So from the last one, the liveliness check, there are two different processes. What we did was a biometric capture. So we did a liveliness check against the information on the Ghana card. So that's why I mentioned that if the Ghana card is fake, the liveliness check will still pass. But in this case, we are doing a real-time biometric verification against your information in the National Identification System. So if it's a different picture, it's not going to pass. If your card is cloned, it's not going to pass. So that's the difference. And with regards to
and for each registration, you have to get a verification code on your phone.
So for every subsequent registration,
yes,
you will get an OTP. on your primary number.
That's right.
So if somebody tries to register, we don't even expect that to be possible. But if somebody tries to register with your Ghana card, you will get an OTP for you to give consent that should the registration continue or not. So that's the difference. So the challenge we had was that because we're not doing real-time biometric verification, those who were using genuine Ghana cards, well, their liveliness check will pass. But those who also had cloned cards, so the clone card, I can have your name, your Ghana card pin, but my picture is on it. It's going to pass. You get it? So that is the difference. Mm-hmm. And with regards to we checking on our stars 402, my numbers were all registered with my Ghana card. But there's a classical case. Our deputy director legal mentioned this, the Supreme Court case. The person's Ghana card was used to register without the person's consent. And we've received a number of complaints on these issues. That's why we've highlighted it as a challenge. Yeah. And biometric verification has always been a challenge. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, that was the main reason why we did a 2021 to 2023 exercise. But because we didn't get access to the NIA database, we couldn't achieve our objective with regards to the 2021 to 2023 exercise. So we are going to do, and as Honorable Minister mentioned, the solution that we are going to use, we'll do liveliness check. You can download the app, then you do your own liveliness check against the NIA database. So even if you are at home and you are trying to do fraudulent registration, it's going to fail. And there are people who don't have smartphones. So those are the ones who have to book appointment and go to the customer care center. In some areas, it may be difficult to access the customer care center, the hard to reach areas. That's why we are looking at sending mobile vans there or using the CICs and the post offices. And there are people who also have smartphones, but they will still want to go to customer care centers. We noticed this with the previous registration. There are people who would still want to go to customer care center to do their registration. So they also have the opportunity to book an appointment to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that regard, let me try to advocate for him. I think, if I understood what he was trying to say, that there is an available data right now.
Yeah.
Is that data fit for purpose? Can it be cleaned up and built upon? Yes.
So what
exactly.
we've done a sample. So it's not the census. We haven't run the entire data through against. We haven't done the whole validation against the NIA database. What we've done is a sample. That's why we mentioned there was 2.3 million registrations.
So what's percentage?
So out of 40 million. So that is a small percentage.
Yeah.
You get it?
That shows that it was 82 by proportion. Proportionals of probability. Majority of them ran.
Well,
He wants to take us into account.
Even
I know, yes.
I remember when the Honorable Minister was mentioning, he's saying that even within that 81, that is where that card, the example of that card was shown. So how do you even determine that even that 81 may be problematic if you want to go by just the numbers?
Yeah, because
and there are marriage of issues
that particular person's really registration would pass because his details were captured.
That's fine. Yeah. Yes, all his answers, yeah.
And that's why we've repeated this. And I've seen people on social media, oh, you need to just clean up the data. You don't need to do this. People do not understand what the technical team have seen and the challenges with the data. If it would have been an easier process for us to just say, pass that 81. But if you do that, you are going to be passing on structural deficiencies that already exist in the current database that will then be transmitted wholesale. So I get it that people are skeptical because of the trauma we went through with the previous registration, but that's why we're taking our time. And if you look at this, that audit was done in June last year. It tells you how long this process has been going on quietly, where we've been mulling over every single opportunity or avenue left to us. We don't want to do this system and tomorrow someone else will come and realize that because we were trying to be convenient, we passed on deficiencies which will then come up tomorrow. And Chair, it's not everything we can say publicly. And this is, even though this is Parliament, that's why at times Parliament we have committees of the whole. It's not all the information as to the challenges we have with the existing system that I can put out publicly. But there are national security challenges as well. Real challenges that we're having to deal with. And that's why we need to do this right to protect our own citizens and ourselves. On the issue of consultation, I mean, policy decisions are not subject to consultation with Parliament. Those are executive decisions. We bring them to Parliament for ratification, and Parliament is at liberty to amend as and when a document is placed before. And that's why, for example, when we bring our LI, we'll have to first come and meet the committee and the subsidiary legislation committee with our policy document. That's where Parliament will be versed with the power to amend that document. But at no point in time in the history of this republic has any minister consulted with Parliament or any agency outside of the executive before taking a policy decision.
If there is any consultation, it is to enhance the document or whatever, but not to give direction.
And especially, I mean, Chairman, we've gone through cabinet, and one way or the other, Parliament is represented in cabinet with the leadership of the majority bloc. So, but Chair, let me be clear. The NCA, which turns 30 this year, is arguably one of the best resourced, managed, and run technical institutions in this country. And we must do everything in our power to support and strengthen the institutional capacity of the NCA. That's part of the reason why, for the first time in the history of the 30 years of the NCA, as minister, I recommended to the president for his appointment a staff of the NCA to become Director General. Very first time. You have someone from within the agency becoming DG. Because for us, we believe that it's a very effective agency. Let us be clear. The NCA is not abandoning any policy advice that was given to my predecessor. But as minister, the NCA brings advice to me as minister. My role as minister is to make a judgment call on the policy advice that they bring. Some of the things we are doing today, did the NCA make them available to my predecessor? Yes, they did. But the judgment call of whether to implement or not to implement was a ministerial decision, which the NCA cannot challenge. And so the NCA has put before me the same technical advice that was available to my predecessor. Kofi Ntim Yeboah Akodie, who is working on this with Mr. Behini and Mr. Apaya, were all present at the NCA. In fact, the Director General was then Director Engineering. So all the technical competence that has been put at my disposal as minister to make a decision existed at the NCA, and they did not hold back. If there were challenges, and you make reference to the 402 short code, that, for example, was a remedial step that the ministry had to succumb to when challenges that the NCA had indicated from the outset will happen, but the ministry ignored, happened. They came in with a remedial solution. And that's why this time we've given policy direction, but regulatory action and the entire technical process has been left to the NCA and the technical brains there. So the NCA is not abandoning anything. In fact, what they are getting is the free rein to do what they are best picked to do. The fine engineers there are some of the finest in our country, and I trust their technical competence. Can we rely on the NIA database? Absolutely. I believe Honorable Kabiru sits on the Finance Committee as well. You would know, under the Finance Committee, the GRA reports to you. Today, your Ghana card number is your TIN number, and that's something that happened under the previous regime when you were at the office of the Vice President at the time. If you can rely on tax numbers from the NIA, we should be able to rely on those same numbers and the data from that same institution to register SIM cards. if the NIA is robust enough to support our tax system, they should be robust enough to support SIM card registration. Then, let's be clear. This process may appear similar to what my predecessor did, but it is not the same. The acting director regulatory has explained the technical difference relative to live verification as against verifying against the data. Today, the NIA is testing a portion of the system that we are going to use with their registration. They are doing recruitment for temporary registration. That recruitment process is doing a liveliness test, a live biometric test. And when we did the engagement with the media, the NIA boss indicated that somebody tried to register for somebody else, did the liveliness test against using someone else's card, entered someone else's card details, and tried to use his own face to do the liveliness test. The system blocked him. So the system that we're going to run, the NIA is already running it and trying to use it. But beyond even the biometric verification, we are doing the linkage with the CEIR, the Central Equipment Identity Register, which is something that did not even exist in the 2021 to 2023 registration. Beyond that is the ability to then have our systems communicate in real time with the NIA system, and I've indicated that already on another platform, the two-strike system for Ghana cards, to make mobile money fraud a high-risk enterprise. If a SIM card is engaged and verified to have been engaged in fraud, mobile money fraud, that SIM card and the device are blocked from the NCA, but in real time, it raises a query on the Ghana card that was associated with that registration. If a second report happens and it is linked to the same Ghana card, the NIA will do the block of that SIM card, of that Ghana card, which then means that the holder of that Ghana card will be deprived the use of the Ghana card system to access all the ancillary services, be they banking, healthcare, drivers and vehicle license registration. So this is a more integrated, interoperable system that we are building. So that's why I say they may look similar, but they are not similar. When you hear two dogs barking in a house, they are all dogs. But you go one to one is called bingo, and the other one is something else.
Pick it. Very
Before you go, I just want to seek your leave and that of his Deputy Minister of Finance is calling me to come to attend to the GIPC bill. So I just want to say that I wish to have been part, but this is the call.
Honorable Chair, Dr. Kabiru, this was in response to the concern you raised as to whether the cleaning or validation cannot be done remotely without the involvement of the subscriber. The Supreme Court has cautioned that in allowing the card to be linked to the number in the first place was a sin. But the more grievous sin was committed when you deleted without his consent, for which reason at each stage now the subscriber must be involved.
But Chair, on that issue, the issue has to do with the fact that the person's ID has been used, which could be as a result of the cloning that we are just talking about, used to register a number to which he did not consent to. That is the government of that particular problem, and he did not consent to his number being associated to that with that his Ghana card being associated to that number. That is the problem. If I voluntarily submit, it is not an issue. Now we are saying that if you validate, you'll be able to tell which ones are even like from your system, which ones are actually with the NIA data system, and which are not with the NIA data system. If you are able to cross that first leg, you then know how many people, like you said, all of you don't have problem with your system. You've registered, you verified. There are no problems with that. The 20 or 30% or 40%, whatever number it could be, you come to a conclusive determination of what the actual problem is after you've done that. Otherwise, you are assuming that the over 40 million are all not verified and they are all property, and you want to do everything on it. And that's just the problem I am telling you, that you want to solve a problem, but why do you then assume that all of us, our registration were proper? That assumption is a problem.
In there and explain what the government of the Goni ruling is. How are you able to then tell that someone used your card So even if we run a biometric now against the NIS database and it passes as you, your card was used, but the SIM that was registered was not handed over to you, was kept by the agent and used on a ghost market operation. How do we verify your consent for that legitimately in quote registered card? And that's why we're saying that from the ruling in Goni and versus versus the NCA and the Republic and Vodafone, what we need to do, and that's why one of the key agencies we're working here with is data protection, is allow everybody submit their own biometrics now with the legal consent to both the NCA and the telco to say, I am doing my liveliness test. To do that liveliness test is presumed to be you granting consent to us. When we send the OTP to you to verify, your entry of that OTP is considered to be consent. But today, all of that did not happen in the database that we are holding. How do I know that the database that I'm cleaning and saying, oh, let it go through, I would end up doing the wholesale transmission, and then you will go back to court, someone will go back to court and say, the NTA has transmitted further data again onto this new system, but this number is one that I don't associate with. Instead of us having to do this hopscotch try attempt, we're saying, let everybody comply with the ruling of the Supreme Court. Let's do this afresh. Let's do this right. And I understand you. The most important thing is to do it in a convenient manner. I can assure you, it will be convenient.
Please, let's have short questions and short answers so that we can... Charlie. Okay. So leadership would take their turn and then we'll close. Alaj, if you have all your file.
Then let him go.
This one cannot move. No, you can move.
Okay.
No, okay.
Thank you, Minister. I want to commend you and your team for taking our country to the next level. Okay, that was original. That was mine. Thank you. I want to commend your leadership and your team for taking us to the next level. But I have a question. And my question is basically, I think it looks like repetitive. Granted, it is approved, we approve. Can you convince citizens that they will not go through the mess we did?
Can you be specific? The mess,
Well, the anxiety.
Okay.
That people queue in line and network challenges and several other things. I come from a rural constituency, and I believe there will be network challenges because it is not everywhere you have network. Will you consider them in this registration? Aside from that, the second question is, I've just checked the data, about 40 million, 38 point something million phones, SIM cards, and from the data, 50-50, 20 something percent having the keypad old phones, and half of it smartphones. How are you going to help those without smartphones also register online? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A very quick one. Can you, or you want to? Yes, I think you should.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, he has been replaced.
Chair, thank you very much. Minister, the presenter enumerated so many knock-on effects. Should should we not go ahead with the exercise vis-a-vis if we should go ahead? But if you get to the UK now, today, if you get to Heathrow, Gatwick, or City, SIM cards are readily available. You don't have to register it. Is it different? What system are they using that if I get to UK, if I get to Turkey now, I can buy a SIM card without me being registered? The other issue is, Minister talks about free. There's nothing free under the moon. Once a telecom company tells you that it's going to pay, we will end up paying five-fold that amount. What are the measures that he is going to do so that we will be assured that the 5 city, we are not going to end up paying even 100 city to the telecom so that it will enrich them? There's too much dichotomy with the issue of Ghana card. You know, my good brother, he's my very good brother, so sometimes. But I know he was the person who was against the usage of Ghana card. He himself. What has changed? Yesterday, I went to Tema. Those who know Tema, Nicholas Plaza, that's where Ghana card, NIA, is. The queue there, it's I don't know, uncountable. I went to GRA to check my TCC, and I was amazed that at this day of time, you want a Ghana card, and people are there for weeks. They tell me, because as you know, we are under one district, Tama Central and Tama East. I'll plead that maybe Ghana cards should rather do it on constituency basis than the district basis, so that. But I want to find out. And then the last question is, aside this change, is there something hidden? Because our president made the first pronouncement, though I know my brother. I refer to him as my brother because he's my brother. So sometimes it's hard to ask certain questions. So, but the president himself said that, look, we are going to change, we are going to do SIM re-registration. Is there something hidden that we, the ordinary Ghanaians, we in the NPP fold, we are not aware? Thank you very much.
Chairman.
Yes, Minister, please.
Guarantee that issues of the past will not happen. And I think I'll answer that. That was from Honorable Umar. I'll answer that in conjunction with the question of the ability to get the Ghana cards that Honorable Forsing raises. The biggest challenge that people had with the 2021 to 2023 registration was the acquisition of the primary document, the Ghana card. At that time, we had just about 60% of the country having the Ghana card. We had only 7 centers across the whole country that were issuing Ghana cards. Today, you have 294 centers. The NIA is about to start another mop-up exercise across the country. So, and currently, we sit at about 90% of the country having Ghana cards. So the primary document, that challenge, that what you saw people clog at LWAC 4 to get was not SIM registration. We're clogged there to get the Ghana card to go and do the registration. Now, that difficulty is what we believe will not be seen today, because from 60%, you have 90% now. You have 294 registration centers against 7 centers. You shouldn't have that difficulty. And we're going to be flexible enough as we roll this out to deal with that issue. Feature phones. Yeah, and I mean, the CICs and Ghana Post Office, I've said that already. Feature phones, there's a USSD code, and then they do that as their first step. Then they have a 2-step process. They do the first step, and then they end up having to go to any of the registration centers, whether it's a post office, a CIC, or a service center itself, or any of the mobile teams that will come into the rural communities to support them to do the registrations, the biometric capture there. On the issue of other countries not registering, I don't know if in the other countries you just buy a SIM card and walk away. They take a document. There's some documents that may be taken from you.
No, in the UK, go to Heathrow this morning. Once you get there, they are there. A P. You just pick it. You don't need
without
no.
They don't accept your passport.
Nothing.
But Honorable, are you sure that those are not tourist SIMs that are valid for a 90-day window or something? Because you see, when you want a SIM card in the UK and you walk into any of the service center shops, they actually even require your postcode.
Yeah.
You must be resident. And Honorable Simon has lived in the UK. Your SIM is tied to your address. So the ones that are sold at airports are tourist SIMs, which are valid for a certain period of time. So in those ones, they may not require any documentation. But when you are resident in the country or a citizen of the country, you can't get a SIM in that country without a valid postcode to which they would always check and send your bills. And proof of ID.
But I'm saying that just as he lives in the, I'm also like more like a British. I'm saying that my.
So
no,
are you British or so that we can check and then have a by-election quickly?
I'm only trying to say that look, if you let any of us get to UK, any shop you can get it. Yeah. It is no without any, and it's not valid for 6 months or. I'm saying that it's in perpetuity.
But I think the difference is that in Europe, the West, majority of the customers are postpaid subscribers.
No.
It's different
postpaid,
from here.
yeah.
They're postpaid. Postpaid. I mean, no. Yeah, most subscribers in Europe and America are postpaid subscribers.
Yeah.
So postpaid, they check your credit history.
So, but I would love for this.
Put it in off.
I mean, I've said it. Minister is my brother. I'm saying that tomorrow I'll be there. So Saturday morning I'll be there. I'll buy a couple of them. Then I'll bring it to him.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you. I mean, we
at my own cost.
We will do.
It's not a way of proving that what Minister says is not right. Buying the SIM card is not the issue. It's about getting them. You and I know very well that if you register, you need to show proof of ID, and it has to be registered to an address.
No.
Okay.
No,
So
no.
let me
The two of us will
let's
travel
not go
together.
back and forth with this.
Yeah,
Hold on.
No. Okay.
Let's not go back and forth with this.
Like I said, I believe that everywhere in the world, any network will want to know who is holding their SIM. But whatever the case is, Chair, this is the Republic of Ghana. And what we decide is in the best interest of our citizens and the ecosystem here, based on regulatory advice, is the way we will go. I don't believe that, and I mean, the attempt to get SIMs registered is something we've been trying to do since the time of Honorable Haruna Idrisu, since 2010. 16 years we've been at it. If we can finally get it right, they say third time is the charm. This is the third time. Hopefully we get it right this time. Are we sure the MNOs will not charge? Absolutely. The MNOs cannot impose a cost on their subscribers without the approval of the NCA. They can't just wake up on their own and say they are taking 5 cedis off everybody's call credit. No, it doesn't work that way. It's a highly regulated space. Okay, and the NCA is going to work with the MNOs to ensure that since we've agreed this is not being passed on, it will not be passed on. Like I said, I trust the NTA to deliver on that. The difficulty to get the Ghana card, like I said, the NIA, even though I'm not supervising minister, I know is working out on doing some mop-up over that issue. Chairman, the last question, is there anything to hide? I don't know if the Honorable Esla Ewusu Ekufu hit something during the SIM registration under the NPP, but from what the NCA has shown to me, there was nothing hidden anywhere. And so it is impossible for the NDC or John Mahama or Sam George to say that we are hiding anything. I don't know what we are going to hide. If the Honorable is worried that maybe I may get the ability to transfer the text messages from his side chicks to his wife, I don't have that power.
Thank you. I think, yes, please, that would be the last. Then we can.
Thank you very much. Just to add on something. You and I know that on the issue of fraud, avoiding money, financial fraud, you try to, if somebody want to go into your bank account and it's online, mobile thing, they send you an OTP, and that's what they're trying to do, which is right. Just last 2 weeks, somebody tried to, because I'm registered on this SendWave app, somebody tried to take money from my bank account because my bank account is linked to the SendWave app and all that. And so there's some criminal group sitting somewhere in Kenya. And so they went into my account, got all the stuff, but then an OTP was sent to my phone. And as soon as I got the OTP, I realized no, I haven't initiated any financial transaction or any payment. So I quickly called Sendwave and told them that there's some fraudulent activity going on. I spoke to HSBC, and immediately they were able to track it. And I think that's what they're seeking to do, which you and I agree that is right. So, thank you.
Buy a SIM card and start using it. That is what I wanted to. When you get to the UK, that is
that one earlier. Yes, I know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I think you've made a point. Not too long ago, I was in the UK, landed at Heathrow. I needed a SIM card to be able to make contact with the one who was coming to pick me. And I went there. I got a SIM card immediately, but they took my passport. And yes, they took it. And it is when they take your passport, it is even linked to your visa. Yes. So it is not just it's not distributed like granules for free. No country would do that. Not the likes of UK, who are very mindful of their national security and all of that. So, but we will do further checks. I'm sure we are all in a position to do that. So we are clear in our minds. But there is no question about the fact that this is a very important national exercise. As far as it will secure all of us, then we all welcome it. So, Minister, I'm giving my closing remarks. After that, I will allow you to also give your closing remarks. And I understand that the media is outside to talk to us. Once they heard that you are here to talk about SIM card, they rush to talk to us about it. A number of my questions that I noted has been answered. However, there are a few you may not be able to answer, but there are things that I'm drawing your attention to so that as you go forward, you take note and ensure that those are properly taken care of. For example, have you quantified, in monetary terms, how much this will cost the taxpayer? You indicated, however, that the telcos are willing to bear the costs. But like my brother was saying, the available ranking was saying, I think he can tell that sometimes, yes, they will take the cost, but secretly transfer the cost to the consumer. You have explained that, but we want to be certain that, as you indicated on national television, that is to be of no cost to the consumer, it will be the case, that later we don't hear that they are hiding and charging the consumer for registration. The issue of agents, the agents for the telcos and their role here is very, very critical in ensuring that we have a clean data at the end of the day. Because from 2011 to 2021, they have always caused a mess. They have always, been behind and registering, sometimes because they think they will take commission from the telcos. They do all kinds of dubious registrations. So all of these mess can be traced to them. I would expect that you have a system that would properly regulate their activities as far as the registration is concerned. What role are they going to play is very, very critical. Then the border towns, I think they have raised it. For us, Togo, Ghana is one country. We have brothers living on the other side of the border. They will not come through the airports with their passports or any documentation. Some of them don't have, the requisite registration requirement or document to register. What are you going to do about it? Then the role of data protection. I'm sure they are one of the stakeholders that you're working with. Is also very critical because we need our data protected. The last registration that we did in 2021, where is the data sitting? I mean, the minister appeared before this committee. We asked about who was the manager of that data, whether they were certified with data protection requirements. You remember, I mean, you were deputy ranking at the time. And we were not convinced the answers that were coming. Now I'm hearing rumors that the data is sitting with NITA. Is that the case? Who initially collected the data and now transferred the data to NITA, or was it NITA from the onset? I want to know. Then the other issues you have dealt with. So I think that these are the concerns that I have, but I would like to thank you for coming after you have answered some of the questions that I've raised with your team to give us a briefing on this important matter. I am not excited yet until that robust system is built and procured and tested and is fit for purpose. I will not want to give you a pass mark. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. And cost to the taxpayers, like I said, the citizens will not pay anything. The NCA, by way of stakeholder engagements and all of that, will definitely incur some level of cost when you invite stakeholders, when you meet with people, you provide water and a few things. There is that limited cost. But relative to the registration itself, there's still not going to be any cost. And I maintain that the telcos will not be allowed to pass on whatever cost it is to the consumer. Agents, Chair, again, I think that in an earlier answer, I indicated that we're working with the MNOs to insist that even in their service centers, there must be a ledger that allows us to know who logged onto which system to register which SIM. Because when a fraudulent SIM is reported, we don't want to be only able to block the SIM and block the device and flag the Ghana card. We want to be able to go to the telco that registered that SIM and identify who registered that SIM, especially and how was that SIM registered. And so they're going to keep a ledger. That's a responsibility on the side of the MNOs. And in fact, there's something that there's a policy direction that's going to come to the NTA relative to that on cryptographic records. It happens in other jurisdictions, so we'll have a conversation around that. On the issue of foreigners, Chair, if the person is a family member or a friend and lives in Togo and crosses into Ghana and wants to get a Ghana registered SIM, whether the person came through an approved border post or came through his brother's bedroom, which is on the border, it will be really inconsequential because to register the SIM, he would have to submit a document. He either submits a passport that can be verified, that will make a SIM valid for 90 days, or he must submit a Ghana card, which will allow him register. So the mode of entry into the country really would not matter, whether you came by land, sea, or whether you sat on a broom like a witch. When you land on the ground and you want a SIM, to get the SIM, you must submit a document. If you want to have a permanent SIM in the country, it must be a Ghana card issued that will be biometrically verified in real time against the NIH database. If it is a passport you are using, you must show us your passport. So you may have beaten, you can beat immigration, but you can't beat the registration of a SIM card, because whichever way, there are no illegal routes to getting approval on the system. The role of the Data Protection Commission, I think the Data Protection Commission is key. Chair, you were with me on the committee at the time. The minister could not give us specific answers. What I have been briefed on is that the entire SIM registry, the data that we have now of the 30 plus, is sitting at NITA, is sitting at the National Data Center. The processes of how the data was collected, who processed and managed the data, whether they were licensed data protection handlers, at the time is one that, Chair, with the greatest of respect, I would want to stay commentary on. Bottom line is that data set is sitting at the, but again, that's a critical difference between what we're doing and what they did. In that process, they collected biometrics and held biometrics. In this process, we are not collecting biometrics. The biometrics are just being verified in real time. So nobody is storing the biometric of any citizen. Unlike in 2021, where the biometrics were captured and kept. In this instance, it's a liveliness test. So the NTA is not holding the biometrics. The platform operator will not hold the biometrics. So in this case, again, that's another difference between the two systems. Chairman, I think that I've dealt with the questions you asked. I want to say thank you. Even though you say you won't give us a pass mark, we are confident that by the time we start the work, you would invite us and commend the team at the NCA for doing a yeoman's job. Because, Chairman, from where I sit, I'm confident that the processes that have been put in place would ensure a seamless process. But we are grateful, and we are always available to respond to the committee. But once again, Chairman, let me express my gratitude to you, leadership, and membership of the committee for responding to us, our request in such a very speedy manner. It means a lot to us. We know we can always count on you, and we are extremely grateful for your leadership, guidance, and support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister, for those short comments. However, the clerk will send you a bill for the live coverage of this event. We've done a lot of good for you.
Chair, you see when I said that, even though we are not charging the citizens, sometimes NCA might bear cost.
Okay, so who is touched by the Holy Spirit to close us with a prayer?
Don't pray, I beg.
Oh, okay. Alaji Misbah.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, we thank Allah Almighty for bringing us here today. Today we have deliberated, we've listened to the Minister, NCA, on the pending SIM card registration. They have explained, and we've also seen the good thoughts with which they are moving with it and the good thought they have for the country. We pray that the exercise, when it comes, inure to the benefit of the good people of Ghana and to everybody. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal lazina an'amta alayhim. Ghairul maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen.